نفسه خاصة عمدا. The touch of any man of his male member, especially deliberately, and if anyone touch his male member deliberately. مسألة: ومس الرجل ذكر نفسه خاصة عمدا بأي شيء مسه من باطن يده أو من ظاهرها أو بذراعه، حاشا مسه بالفخذ أو الساق أو الرجل من نفسه، فلا يوجب وضوءا. So here Hazm said, from the things which breaks the wudu, مس الرجل ذكر نفسه, the touching of the man, the male member of himself, عمدا, deliberately, بأي شيء مسه, with any limb or with any organ he touched it. من باطن يده, even he touched it from his inside his hand, أو من ظاهرها, or if he touched it with his back, with the back of his hands, أو بذراعه, or he touched it with his palm, حاشا مسه بالفخذ أو الساق أو الرجل, but except if he touched it with his thigh or with his shin or with his leg, فلا يوجب الوضوء. So if he touches it with any of these three things, so here it does not break the wudu. ومس المرأة فرجها عمدا كذلك أيضا سواء سواء. And touching of the woman of her private part deliberately, it's also like this. ولا ينقض الوضوء شيء من ذلك بالنسيان. But in this case, it does not break the wudu if he does it out of forgetting. So if he forgets and touch his male member, or a woman touch her private part without any intention, so here in this case the wudu does not break. ومس الرجل ذكر غيره من صغير أو كبير ميت أو حي بأي عضو مسه عمدا من جميع جسده من ذي رحم محرمة أو من غيره. طيب. ومس الرجل ذكر غيره, if a man, يعني from the things which breaks the wudu, touching of a male member of anyone other than him, even this one is صغير, is young or small one, أو كبير or old, ميت أو حي, even the one is dead or alive, بأي عضو مسه, if he touched the male member of this man with any limb of him, عمدا, but should be deliberately, من جميع جسدي, from all of his body, من ذي رحم محرمة, even this one is mahram from him. Mahram means the one it is haram to marry. It is haram to marry. Like for example, this is mahram from the woman. Mahram from the woman means the woman which is haram to marry. Like for example, his mother, his sister, his uncle, his auntie, his all of these things. This is we call them mahram. And al-mahram min al-rijal, al-mahram min al-rijal means the one who, if he is a woman, it will be haram to marry. Like for example, the auntie from father side. So the auntie from father side, if she is a man, so she will be an uncle. So it is haram. Uh, يعني, sorry, the opposite. يعني, if an uncle from father side, if he is a woman, so it will be an auntie from the father side. So in this case, he will be haram to marry. So al-am al-am is mahram. Okay, so this is maharim. So anyone who is haram to marry, or if he is another gender, it will be haram to marry. So he means here, or if he touch a male member of anyone, haram to marry, or it is haram to marry if he is a woman, like his uncle, his father, his son. Okay. من جميع جسدي من ذي رحم محرمة أو من غيره or other than it أو مس المرأة فرج غيرها عمدا or if a woman touch the private part of other than her عمدا deliberately أيضا as well كذلك are the same سواء سواء لا معنى للذة في شيء من ذلك there is no يعني معنى هنا means no effect of the thrill or a pleasure in any uh, kind of this touching. And why he said that? Because some uh, scholars said differentiate between touching the private part yani without any intention to have a pleasure or to have a thrill when you are doing it or without any intention to enjoy this thing means he means uh, sexually enjoyment. So in this case they said you don't have to do wudu in this case, but if anyone or any woman touches a private part or her private part to have this sexual pleasure, okay, so in this case he has or she has to do wudu. So Ibn Hazm here said she said لا معنى للذة في شيء من ذلك يعني لذة it is not an effective cause in this issue يعني it is nothing. So even he does this with the intention of of, uh, of ladha, of sexual pleasure or not. فإن كان كل ذلك, even any of these things, على ثوب رقيق, يعني if he touches or she touches her private part on ثوب رقيق means a thin cloth أو كثيف or a thick cloth يعني from above these things للذة أو لغير لذة for a sexual enjoyment or not باليد أو بغير الود with a hand or with other than hand عمدا أو غير عمد deliberately or undeliberately لم ينقض الوضوء so it does not break wudu in this case. Why? Because there is a barrier from clothes between your hand and the private part. وكذلك إن مسه بغلبة أو نسيان as well as if he touch his private part with غلبة يعني by forcing or by forgetting or out of forgetting فلا ينقض الوضوء it does not break the wudu برهان ذلك the برهان of this ما حدثنا حماد بن أحمد قال ثنا ابن مفرج and he mentioned the chain of hadith عن عروة بن الزبير قال تذاكر هو ومروان الوضوء يعني عروة بن الزبير and مروان بن الحكم they remember the wudu فقال مروان حدثتني بسرة بنت صفوان أنها سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بسرة بنت صفوان narrated to me that she heard رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يأمر بالوضوء من مس الفرج he commanded us to do wudu from touching the private part. This hadith, there is a difference between the scholars about the trustworthy of this man who is Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Okay, Marwan هذا. Okay, so some as Ibn Hazm and others said he is trustworthy, and some others say no, he is not that man who can depend upon on narrated hadith. So so according to this, okay, so some scholars said this hadith is sahih, okay, like Ibn Hazm, and some said no, this hadith is not, okay. So they uh, return to the original status. So they said, yani touching wudu, touching the private part does not break the wudu. Okay. طيب. قال أبو محمد فإن قيل إن هذا خبر رواه الزهري عن عبد الله بن أبي بكر بن عمرو بن حزم عن عروة قلنا مرحبا بهذا وعبد الله so will say welcome to this وعبد الله ثقة والزهري لا خلاف في أنه سمع من عروة وجالسه عبد الله is trustworthy this man والزهري عند محمد بن شهاب الزهري لا خلاف في أنه سمع من عروة وجالسه there is no difference between the scholars that he heard from Urwa ibn Zubayr and sits with him فرواه عن عروة ورواه أيضا عن عبد الله بن أبي بكر عن عروة so he narrated it directly from Urwa and he narrated it as well from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr عن عروة from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr عن عروة فهذا قوة للخبر. So this is a strengthening for the narration. والحمد لله رب العالمين, and الحمد لله رب العالمين. طيب. Why he said this? Because some scholars, they are weakening the hadith if the hadith has two narration, okay, and one narration, as like here, Urwa Zuhri related this hadith or narrated this hadith, okay, from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr from Urwa, okay. طيب. So in this case, he added Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr between him and Urwa. There is someone in the middle. And in another narration, Az-Zuhri narrated it directly from Urwa. So some, يعني little people of the scholars of Hadith said, now this shows, if there is a difference between narration like this shows that the one who is narrated from Az-Zuhri is not accurate as his narration in this narration, just in this narration. So they said this is kind of contradiction, so we have to reject this narration. And the majority of scholars said no, yeah, a scholar of hadith, they said no, this is not something which weaken the hadith. This is something which strengthen the hadith. Why? Because Az-Zuhri, maybe one time he narrated it from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr, and in this long narration, okay, and Urwa, okay, and sometimes he himself heard Urwa and narrated it directly from Urwa. So it could happen like this. So now, if he narrated it two times like this, so it is something, nothing. There is no contradiction here. So this is something just strengthen the hadith because we have two narration uh, about this hadith. And as I said, this is majority of the scholars of hadith depend upon this thing. So Ibn Hazm here said, فهذه قوة للخبر. This is a strengthening to the narration, not weakening. There is nothing to weaken. Okay? طيب. قال علي Marwan, this is another issue here about Marwan ibn al-Hakam. طيب. مروان ما نعلم له جرحة قبل خروجه على أمير المؤمنين. يعني he was talking about Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Marwan ibn al-Hakam was one of the leaders of Umayyah's Khulafa. So he said مروان ما نعلم له جرحة قبل خروجه على أمير المؤمنين عبد الله بن الزبير. We don't have anything. جرحة means, or jarh means, anything which shows that this man is not trustworthy. Okay, it is something which affect or injure his honor, and we can say this man is not trustworthy anymore. So he said ما نعلم له جرحة قبل خروجه على أمير المؤمنين عبد الله بن الزبير, before his خروجه, because Marwan ibn al-Hakam, when Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu, is one of the Sahaba, took the Khilafah in Mecca and Al-Medina, and the Muslims gave him the pledge to be Khalifa, Marwan ibn al-Hakam خرج عليه means he fought him to remove him from this Khilafah in Mecca and Medina. Okay, so because of this, okay, because Abdullah ibn Zubayr was Sahabi and he was trustworthy, and because of this action from Marwan ibn al-Hakam, and there is another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لعن الله الحكم وما ولد من صلبه. Al-Hakam ibn Abi al-As, this is a father of Marwan ibn al-Hakam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam cursed Al-Hakam ibn Abi al-As, who is father of this man, Marwan ibn al-Hakam, and وَمَا وُلِدَ مِنْ صُلْبِ, and whoever born from his loin. So because of these two hadith, actually, okay, this one of is called Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Some scholars said he's not trustworthy, this man, so we cannot depend upon his hadith. But Ibn Hazm here differentiate between two eras or two stages in the life of this man. The first stage of the first era of this man, Ibn Hazm said he was a pious man in this stage, and he was trustworthy in this stage before he does what he did before, from fighting Amir al-Mu'mineen Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu. Okay, and afterwards, when he started to fight illegally the Khalifa, who is Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu, so in this case he became fasiq, يعني fasiq, and means he يعني is not trustworthy or sinful because of this. So because of this, we cannot depend upon this hadith after he did this. And Ibn Hazm said, وَلَمْ يَلْقَهُ عروة ibn الزبير. This is a brother of Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Is a brother of Abdullah ibn Zubayr, the one who narrated this hadith from Marwan ibn al-Hakam radiallahu. So Urwa ibn Zubayr, the brother of Abdullah ibn Zubayr, the Khalifa, he narrated this hadith from Marwan ibn al-Hakam. So Ibn Hazm said, لم يلقاه عروة قط. Urwa didn't meet him إلا قبل خروجه على أخيه, except before he fought his brother Abdullah ibn Zubayr. He means in the stage which he was trustworthy in it. لا بعد خروجه هذا, not after his uh, his khuruj, يعني when someone fight the imam without any legal شرعي or legal reason, so they call it خرج على الإمام. Okay, if someone is given the pledge يعني legally, so it is haram to fight him except if there is a legal evidence or legal reason to do this. So they call this khuruj, fighting the imam. We call this khuruj. Except لا بعد خروج هذا ما لا شك فيه. There is no doubt about it. تمام. So وبصرة that Marwan ibn al-Hakam narrated about Busra bint Safwan, Sahabiya. It is mashhura, it is famous from Sawahib Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, from the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Al-Mubayi'at al-Muhajirat, the ones who gave the pledge to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Al-Muhajirat means the ones who migrate to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. وهي بسرة بنت صفوان ابن نوفل ابن أسد ابن عبد العزى بنت أخي ورقة ابن نوفل وأبوها ابن عم خديجة أم المؤمنين لحن.